Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Devs. Season 1, Episode 8 is the final episode for ending of the story, of course, because it's Season 1 there, it's not Season 1, it's a mini-series, but the point remains, is the finale, and we were in a kind of a weird place getting into this one, because we kind of felt let down by the last couple of episodes, and a lot of the problems of the show had kind of risen to the surface in a way that was hard to ignore. And then this episode kind of continues to be that mixed bag, where there's elements of this episode that I quite like, and there's certainly visuals of this episode that I really like, but there's points that it makes, and there's ideas that it has that I feel are... The two main problems I have is, one is that some of the ideas, now that we've actually gotten to the end and see how they execute the end of those ideas, feels a bit undercooked to me. And then the other part is that... we were definitely worried that there was going to be too much of a focus on Lily and like how this affects her, or how this matters to her. And there's a speech that's given towards the end of this episode about how special she is because she's one of a kind, that I just like I felt like any credibility the scene had just completely tanked the second that those words started coming out of Ron Swanson's mouth.
Pretty much, the idea's been underbaked. It was definitely a feeling I was getting, especially the last 15-minute section. Okay, we're doing that, I guess. Yeah,
I mean, I felt it there, but that wasn't even the first problem I had in terms of it being undercooked. Because, I mean, that's undercooked in the sense that it's a whole new idea that's introduced in the last 15-20 minutes, more or less. Obviously, there's some hints towards the theory, but it's fairly new. The problem I have with things being undercooked, though, is that the actual conclusion to the main thing that we've been dealing with for the past few episodes, the main kind of crux of the show, feels undercooked.
I agree. I think honestly the biggest problem is so what this was always going to be building up to, I'm sure we spoiled this in previous episodes, is someone making a choice that defies the machine.
Yes, and ultimately, and I did like in this episode that when Lily comes into the devs building, once, and the first part of this conversation was actually one of the worst parts of the episode, because she was just regurgitating things we already knew, and still standing there saying that's impossible, which is something I complained about in the last episode. We're past this. I'm past people saying this is impossible. Just get on with it. But I did like that she just said, okay, I want to see what happens. I don't want you to tell me. Show me. Hit play. Like, show me what happens. I did like the idea of them watching the ending before the ending happens, right? I like that idea. I like that part of it, and to see the things play out. And the big thing, of course, is that in the ending, what happens before they can't see past the future is that she takes Forrest into the cube, the sort of the elevator, if you will, that sort of goes across back and forth to the entrance, and she shoots him in that, and not only does it kill him, but it makes the vacuum around it sort of is obviously penetrated, so the whole thing drops, and that's how she ends up crawling inside and dying, presumably because there's no atmosphere in there.
It's just she's suffocating essentially.
I imagine she lasts a little bit longer in here than, like, say, space, because whatever air was in the elevator itself might give her a little bit of time.
Probably, but that's such a small amount in terms of for the size of the room that it's going to suddenly fill. Very little.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying in comparison to space, where I feel like you might get
like 2 or 3 extra breaths of air.
Well, she does a lot of crawl all the way across the floor, so I mean, there's a bit more time. But so then, of course, she plays it out. So okay, well, it's time to do this. And the big thing she does is that she's going into the little cubicle. And Alison Pill, Katie's pressing the buttons to close the door. She, at the last second, throws the gun out of the door, so that she doesn't even have the option after this. It's not even that she can second guess herself. Like, once the door is shut, she's away from the gun. She can't get to it. And Forrest immediately starts freaking out, saying, "Well, that's impossible. That's impossible." And that's really frustrating me, this moment, because, like, obviously this was always going to build up to the idea of free will versus what's determined, and I think the frustrating part of this is that it feels like Forrest never considered someone just intentionally, defiantly saying, "No, I'm not going to do that."
I think it bothers me because it was established from the start that no, he hates this idea, but it always felt like he was over the course. He was afraid of the possibility it was real, that he did something wrong, that he could have impacted his daughter's survival essentially, and he had to believe in this, but. The idea here that he just it's completely impossible. I think it's more just he doesn't want to accept it, fine, but I don't buy the ferocity of the impossibility that he exclaims it is.
I think even Katie looks shocked though. I think my problem extends past even beyond the moment. It bothered me in the scene itself because it felt like such a nothing. Like it felt like this is the first argument anyone has against everything they've been saying all season, right? It was the first thing we brought up is like, what if someone just, defiantly says, I won't do the thing that I know I'm supposed to do, right? It's not even just this show. Anytime the idea of predestination comes up where you know what's going to happen, the idea of defiantly saying, no, I will just do opposite thing, right? That is the first argument anyone ever has when this comes up. And it feels weird to me that this show, it kind of danced around the idea earlier on, but it's weird that we built up for 8 episodes, very slowly building towards this payoff, only for it to be the very first thing that she does that actually works, is the thing that we'd all thought of the second that anyone mentioned this idea.
Do you know what's particularly frustrating as well for me is there's an idea that comes right after this that I love in concept, where Stuart essentially drops them anyway. It's like, it's predetermined, had to happen. And this idea of like the universe essentially correcting itself. So sure, she made a choice and changed.
Yeah, that's an idea you can read from it. It's not an idea that Stuart himself has, though. Stuart doesn't do it because he thinks it needs to happen. Stuart, for that reason, he does it because he thinks it needs to happen because this has to be shut down. We can't continue with this. This is unholy and this is immoral. What we've built here, we can't have this. Right,
but the idea of the universe essentially, okay, you may fudge the details a little bit, but the outcome's the same.
Yes.
I kind of love that as a concept, but that's something we could have been playing with a little bit earlier, and maybe this final choice has more weight because it's one where the universe doesn't automatically correct it immediately.
So my bigger problem though, so it annoyed me in the moment, right, that I felt like it was just the most obvious thing and it just immediately seemed to kind of work. Although arguably it didn't, because then Stuart did his thing and it kind of had the same end result. But so I had that issue in the moment, but then afterwards, when we go into, they're living in the simulation, and they're not just in one simulation, because Forrest clearly explains it, that they're living out every simulation, like every version of the world that they could be in, they're in. The ones we were just looking at are the ones who lucked out and went into the most perfect version of the timeline, where he's got his family back, and she can go find Jamie at the end, whatever, right?
Because apparently she's like, no, it was Jamie all along.
But he gives her this big speech about how he didn't want her to forget who she was because she was special, and it shouldn't change that one thing about her, that she's completely unique and follows her own path. And I'm like, whoa. You're telling me that she is special because she did one thing out of defiance to prove that the prediction wouldn't work? Everyone would do that. That's an every person thing.
Yeah, and do you know what frustrates me more is, okay, so they're inside the machine. They are living out every simulation because this is every multiverse, essentially. This is every possibility of what could happen. So all that happened is she picked an option from a different multiverse to the one that you thought you were looking at, essentially.
Essentially, yeah. That is essentially what that kind of proves. And Katie wants to keep the machine turned on just so that he can have his afterlife, essentially. She wants him to be happy. We get one scene of her talking to the other boss lady, like, no, we have to keep this running, so, like, in some of the visuals, the slow motion shot of the cube hitting the floor, beautiful.
Gorgeous.
The shot of them standing against the fuzzy feed in silhouette, gorgeous. Like, full of beautiful moments in terms of the visuals, like the show has been from the start. It just
it lost the writing to back up those ideas in the last third or so of the show.
I mean, something we said repeatedly the last couple of episodes is that this should have been a 2-hour movie. Like, I feel that even like 10 times as much this episode.
I read an interview with Garland just after, this afternoon, just having a browse, and it popped up on my phone. I thought, I'll go on then. I'll give it a read. And one of the questions was, did you ever consider making this a movie, or was it always a TV show? And he was like, no, it was always a TV show, because I can't even. He said he couldn't conceive of a way that this works as a movie. And he goes, I'm sure there's someone out there who will go, hey, I could edit this into a 2.5-hour movie, but I couldn't do it. I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Maybe editing it from here would be more difficult, admittedly.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't edit this down. I would rewrite it into a 2-hour movie.
I think this is, if you're at the writing stage, this is extremely easy to get down into a 2-hour, maybe 2.5-hour movie.
I feel like there's so much regurgitation of information throughout the show. Lily especially is frustrating for it, where she's slowly getting everything that we already know. It's like, that ultimately became a really frustrating thing with her. There's so much of the Kenton stuff you could have probably just get rid of. Like, it wasn't really, if you were cutting this down to a 2-hour movie, like, you could just focus on the key science fiction ideas you want to focus on, and maybe this moment where she makes this choice wouldn't feel as kind of monumentally underwhelming, because I mean, it goes into slow motion, there's shocked faces, the music ramps up, it's meant to be a big moment, and I'm sitting there going, huh, what?
Yeah,
Like,
no, I'm with you.
this is the first thing we'd have said to do. This is the first idea anyone had when this concept is presented with them, is just do the opposite thing.
And it was like teased early on. I think it was when Forrest and Katie were watching themselves a couple of seconds into the future, and it was about, you know, whether or not she could just not move her arm after she'd watched it move and break that. So, you know, and that was episode maybe 2 or 3, I think. So this was presented early on as, oh, we could do this, and I feel like, you know, early on that was fine to start it there. But if this is your end point, I don't know, it's not big enough. You didn't justify it. You had to. This sort of level of moment should have been 3 or 4 episodes ago.
Yeah,
this should have been the middle of it, essentially.
Yeah. Or, I mean, I think it can be the end of it, but it can be the end of it if I've not spent 8 hours building up to it.
Sure, I mean, in this particular context, that level of moment had to be the middle.
Yeah, you know, if you want to like negotiate with me, Garland, because I respect you. Yes, okay, maybe not a 2-hour movie, maybe a 4-hour episode series. Like, you know, maybe half the length. Like that. Maybe that's how you get the perfect balance of what you want and what feels like it's overstretching things out. But it just it doesn't feel like it. And it's not that I want to lose the quiet moments, because I love the quiet moments. I love the moments of basking in the haunting kind of the ideas of it. But that's not the parts that feel stretched out to me.
No. And the thing is, we've seen a handful of movies from Garland as a director, and he can handle those quiet moments in a 2-hour movie quite comfortably.
Which, for the most part, are far more satisfying than this. I mean, well, I say most part, all of them are.
Yeah, definitely.
They're all more satisfied. So we have to talk about the little reveal that Forrest has with Lily, where he reveals that the V is actually Roman and therefore actually a U. And he says it was kind of an inside joke, and I actually laughed because even though, okay, the idea of the machine just being God kind of works in the context of the show, as a inside joke, as a meta joke, it works even better because he made a movie called Ex Machina.
Yeah, it's a double inside joke.
Yeah, because normally the full phrase you hear is Deus Ex Machina.
I do actually really appreciate the concept of this being a companion piece to Ex Machina, in the sense of Ex Machina was, can we create a person, and this is, can we create God?
Yeah,
there's an interesting companion element to those from the same director. I do appreciate that. I just think one is massively better than the other.
Yeah, one is massively better than the other, and I respect the intention of the show. I respect what he wanted to do with it and what he was trying to do with it.
And I think what's frustrating is, even here at the end, I like all the ideas. I like what he's getting at. I like angle of approach. I just think it's not refined. It just needed a few more passes. And
I also have a problem with, because Katie says to the woman, the congresswoman, or whoever it is, that like in the simulation, like it would feel as real as real. There'll be no difference. So you wouldn't feel any different. Like it'd feel completely real. But I still, as a viewer, I still sit and go, yeah, but it's not. It's it's as much as it might feel real to them. Like, we know it's fake, and hell, even Forrest, he watched his family die, and this is, this version of them he's with has been built out of data from the real world that is, like it's a perfect copy in every single way, but it's still a copy. It's still not. This definitively says there is a real world in the context of the show. There's a real world, and then there's all these simulations, and sure, there might be all these real versions of all these simulations that also exist, but they're not in the real versions of those multiverse.
Again, what you're getting at here is another frustrating element to me, because the show wanted to present this as no, the simulations are real. It's tried multiple times. There was a bit with Stuart talking to everyone else. I think it was last episode or the episode before.
Last episode.
Where they were watching themselves just in the future, and they were talking about how, they thought we're not in the box, and she was like, no, we are. We're just another part of that box. Watch, and again, presenting the idea that the machine is actually reality, and they're just part of its reality. Is the way again. So it's tried to poke at these ideas. It didn't go far enough with them.
I mean, hell yeah, you could have done a twist where the entire season was inside one of the simulations. We weren't even in the real world the entire time. Like, that could have been an obvious route to take this. And maybe when when Lily wakes up and it's that morning with Sergei, the day before he dies or the day of his death, whatever it was in the first episode, and she goes through these motions of kind of remembering things. Like, this could have been the idea of like, well, this last time wasn't even the first time we went through that. This is the 40th simulation because it's trying to figure something out. It's trying to predict something that it can't predict because there's an element at the end. Because I never quite understood, actually, to be honest. I mean, maybe you can explain it to me. I never really found the justification in the episode why the machine couldn't see past this event anymore.
No, I can't either. Because I at first I thought when the thing was crashing down, does that essentially turn the machine off? And that's why it couldn't see past it. Like, and it for whatever reason, its own destruction, its own demise, it couldn't see past it. It was clearly not the case. And then I thought, well, okay, Lily makes her choice, so that throws everything the machine knows out of whack.
Unless
it knows it's going to defy its choice, then why is it making the prediction in the first place?
Unless it's like because it's an unpredictable moment, even though technically it always saw a little bit past the moment itself the choice was made, like, it couldn't see past that moment until we were past the moment itself, and now it can predict things again because the moment of choice is past.
That doesn't work for me. I think the way that you could set up that as the way it worked is if every time they watch this moment, this final moment, it played out differently, and it couldn't go any further because we don't know what to do after that.
Well, either that or it ended just as the choice was about to be made. You couldn't see the choice itself.
Sure.
It'd have to end right as it's about to happen. Actually, that was the other thing I had problem with the whole your special because basically, like, Katie starts crying at one point, when she's watching this, and because she starts crying and smiling, says she made a choice, she made a genuine choice, but she says it as if literally no one in the history of the human race has ever done that before. This is the first time someone has actually made a choice, a real choice.
It's interesting because she obviously believes that. And I think that is the implication.
Yeah.
Yeah. The problem is, okay, just because they weren't aware, does that mean that they weren't choices?
Yeah. The implication of that says that the only reason why she can make a real choice is because she knew that there was something that was supposed to be predetermined. But my argument would be that, just because everyone else didn't know that there was technically a track that they were on, that doesn't necessarily mean that choices they made weren't 50-50.
It's frustrating because Forrest even kind of says something to that illusion here where he's talking about it's before he's shown Lily the scene of what's going to happen, and he's talking about how as he's saying these words, they don't feel like he's just repeating them because he knows what they say. It feels like the right thing to say. It feels like they're coming to him naturally, so therefore it feels like he is making a choice, right? And you would maybe make the argument that anyone who didn't know the predetermined future was making a choice. It just happened to be that choice was in line with the predetermined future.
Yes. It's frustrating. It was a frustrating episode to watch because I kept going up and down of like things I liked to things I didn't like. And then by the time we actually had Forrest like explaining they're in like a simulation and it's all these multiverses and they lucked out and they're in the good one and you can do whatever you want.
I wasn't entirely convinced as to why they were in the simulation. Like, are these just, if they're just simulation versions of them to begin with, they shouldn't have these memories. So how did they get in there with their own memories of their quote unquote real world intact?
Oh no, you can't, that was kind of hinted at. It was because when he gives a big speech about how you build like everything, is like, okay, so you have part of the data so you can get the rest of the data based on that data, and then you keep going further. So the idea is that literally by getting to the data of them and the moments before they died, everything goes with it. It's not just, it's like every molecule of their existence that existed when they died is...
Okay, I get that, but my frustration there is the data was wrong because she made a different choice to what the data suggested. Therefore, it's not what they remember.
Yeah, but it came from right before they died for real, not before the simulate, not before what they predicted. Katie put it in.
Oh, sure. Okay.
From the second they died, so it's like after the choice was made.
All right. Okay.
It's thin because all of this stuff at the end is thin. This last 15-20 minutes is very thin, and undercooked. But I can accept that almost been undercooked just as being okay. There's this idea at the end it's undercooked. My real problem is that the ending to the real idea that the show's been focused on feels undercooked.
Yeah, that is particularly irritating. I mean, I'll accept that explanation that you give me there. I didn't want to overthink it. And
seriously, Forrest, though, you're special. You're one of a kind because
he
you made a choice.
Messiah.
A Messiah.
I'm like, no. I appreciate the illusion there where Katie's like, no, she's not the Messiah. She's Eve, essentially. She committed the original sin. I thought that was a more interesting parallel. But I mean, still hadn't earned it.
Nah. This was a frustrating episode where nothing really felt like it capitalized on stuff that it had built before, for the most part, for me.
Yeah, I feel so frustrated by this show in that there's 2/3 of it where there's so many ideas bouncing around that I really like, and I like it enough, and the style of it and the tone of it, that I could look past the problems. So they compounded. That was it.
Ultimately, I describe it as it never really comes into a cohesive whole. And it never feels like the ideas kind of actually click together to actually form something that's a satisfying meal, because it just never quite goes together. It's just, to continue with the food analogy, it's like a meat patty from a burger with no bun, but then there's also like some Skittles like over next to it, and then it's things that don't quite go together. They're all nice things on their own, except for Lily. She's like a Brussels sprout in the middle. I don't know.
I would be a little bit fair on that. I think the things could go together. They're just not. It's like all the parts of a burger. Like, okay, so here's your bun, here's the beef, here's some lettuce, and they're all on 3 separate plates. And you're presented all 3 at once. And it's like, build it yourself. And I'm like, no.
Okay, sure. Or you could go down the route of, okay, it's all the parts of the burger, but the bun's kind of burnt, the meat's undercooked, the lettuce is already going kind of purpley, it's been sitting out too long. Everything's just a little bit either too far one way or the other, and none of it's merging into a good, satisfying final burger.
That works. We really went all in on this burger analogy.
Well, I mean, I don't know what else to go in on. Because there's the whole scene where she kind of demands to see Sergei's phone, and he's like, "Why, do you think I'm cheating on you?" He's like, "Maybe, just let me see your phone." And she goes to the Sudoku game, and he's like, he panics and goes, "Oh, it's just a Sudoku game. Come on, what are you doing? This is a big day for me. Stop messing up."
He's about to go give his presentation to Forrest.
Yeah. Although he's actually in the field playing with his daughter, so.
Yeah.
He's not there for that,
I guess.
No, they're in the same simulation. The whole point is that Lily and Forrest, these two are in the same world.
Someone else is running the company then, I guess. I don't.
I'll be honest, I really thought that he was going to say to her, when he said that, she says, they all know they're simulated, and he says, no, just us. I really thought he was going to say also Jamie. I really thought he was going to say Jamie was also put in here, because he seemed to bond a little bit with Jamie, and Jamie was a complete innocent bystander who just happened to get shot. I don't know. Actually, I had a thought. Do you know you were arguing about the last episode about him putting the lemon on the glass of water?
Yeah.
I was thinking this episode, and this is how unengaged I was. Is that I was thinking of a random moment.
You were thinking about me being petty last week.
Not so much that part. It popped out of my head. And I thought, what if that was the first real choice in the show? Is that he just decided, I'm going to put some lemon with this water, and that's kind of weird. It's like that was the first real choice. Not this thing with Lily throwing the gun out. It was that putting the lemon on the rim of the water.
That would give it a good excuse for it to stick out as weird to me.
Yeah, and I think the idea as well, obviously Stuart, what convinced Stuart that this is all needs to be dealt with is the fact that Katie led Lyndon to his death, and he cared for Lyndon. I think that's kind of the human connection for him that justifies why he feels so strongly now, and why he really sees the awful and the evil in letting this exist and letting people be driven by it. So I mean, that is there. Those building blocks are there. But I do hope Garland returns to movies. I don't think that TV worked quite, because the first reviews of this, I don't know how many episodes the reviewers saw for those early reviews. I'd assume half of it, probably.
It's usually not all.
Yeah, but they described it as a mixed bag, and honestly, getting to the end of the show, it definitely is a mixed bag.
The word I remember reading at the start from a review was misfire.
Hmm.
And I think that was interesting, because if they only had half of it, I wouldn't have called it a misfire by that point.
I mean, maybe that's why they're getting paid to review things. They could tell. They could tell earlier on.
Well, maybe, but I mean, at that point, there was still enough there where if you capitalize on that ending, I'd have been all in, and I think I'd have still called it a win.
I mean, I think if they had up to episode 4, there was definitely some things that were showing up by then. Lily herself, of course, was a huge problem already by that point. There was definitely a disjointed feeling to some of the elements and how slow it was moving through some of the plot, but. Certainly the main problems for us didn't really start, ringing the alarm bells until episode 6. And admittedly, maybe that's just a case of this was more to our taste up until that point, and then the problems became too much to bear. I mean, that could really be the answer.
Yeah, the word I used earlier was, that's when the problems compounded, and it became, they were all brought to light, and it was just, okay, it's unforgivable now. And
well, that's when the misfire happened. It's like the first 5 episodes was taking aim. It was, it was loading the gun, it was lifting it up, it was aiming at the target, and episode 6 is where you realise that they're pointing too far to the left. And then 7 and 8 were kind of just watching the bullet in slow motion go towards
it was
the empty target.
The wind trying to push the bullet back on the wall, but it had no chance.
But then you get episode 8 was like watching it hit the concrete wall, like a foot to the left of the target. And it's a beautiful explosion of dust and concrete as the bullet hits it, but ultimately it's still a miss.
Man, we're really going all in on analogies today. We're getting good at these.
I mean, honestly, I think I don't have a whole lot of interesting stuff to say about the episode. That's kind of why.
No, I get it. It's frustrating because it's the ending, and it for the most part it does kind of what it's supposed to do as the ending, but that's no longer satisfying enough for us.
No. I would agree with the word misfire. Having now watched the whole thing, I think I'd agree with that word. And I think it's easily my least favourite Alex Garland thing. All of the stuff that he's been hit, and I'm counting Dread onwards for that. I'm not just like counting stuff that he was, part of a writer for or whatever before then.
Yeah, because obviously he had a reasonable length career of just writing stuff before that. I mean, at least a decade before that.
Dread, he did technically just write, but the buzz around that movie is that he ended up uncredited directing a lot of it because there was problems with the production. So, so I kind of count Dread onwards as kind of being the Garland era. But unfortunately, this is this is not Dread. It is not Ex Machina. It's not Annihilation. And all three of those movies I really like, and all three of them do kind of have they have some flaws you can point at. I think in all three of them to varying degrees. None of them are perfect movies, but they're all really satisfying movies. They're all really, I
wonder if part of it is none of them are long enough to outstay their welcome, where the problems overtake the things that you like.
Yeah, very possible. Very possible. So, unfortunately, we can't give this an astounding recommendation or positive marks. We have to kind of be a bit of a downer here at the end and say that it got things to enjoy, but ultimately is not I can't see myself rewatching this.
No, me either. Like, I will rewatch all of those films that we just talked about happily. Because
I'm thinking about I think the kind of closest I can compare this to is maybe Too Old to Die Young, and I can definitely rewatch that. I will definitely rewatch that at some point. That is an experience that I will want to relive.
Yeah, I can get that, and it's actually kind of a similar kind of comparison here in that we have a filmmaker given kind of reasonable free rein.
Yeah, it's a filmmaker doing a one-season TV show, both of which are very slow-paced. They both like to have their long, drawn-out moments, and of course, Refn's very much taste-based as well.
Yeah,
like, you have to like his stuff.
It's very Refn. That it is unfiltered Refn, and it's like, hey, if you like Refn, you'll probably like that show. If you don't, probably won't.
Yeah, run away, run for the hills.
If you don't like Refn, then you will despise that show. Whereas this here, we generally speaking would say we like Garland a reasonable amount.
Yeah, I would say Too Old to Die Young is an unmitigated success as a work of Refn. Right, as wanting something from Refn, that show gave me exactly what I needed from a Refn show. Whereas this, I felt like I got an undercooked kind of idea of an Alex Garland thing.
Yeah.
As opposed to, one of his movies. So, hey, but that'll do. I think we'll leave it there, and we'll move on with our lives. We are still reviewing Westworld Season 3, of course. There's a few episodes left of that, so do go check out those reviews if you're interested for more sci-fi talk. Interesting.
And some very similar themes to this one.
Yeah, some interesting parallels to Devs, actually, that made us compare them a little bit last episode of Westworld. But, yeah, so thank you very much for watching or listening. Let us know what you thought in the comments. Like and subscribe. All that stuff, guys, on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV if you want to support everything we do and support us financially from as little as $1 per month. And of course, check us out on the Twitters at mail_fuzz for channel updates and whatever else. So, but that is us, so thank you once again. We'll see you next time. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?